A message from the author. Hey everyone, and thank you for listening to my story so far. I just wanted to let you know that what you're hearing is still technically an early draft. I put together this audiobook out of curiosity, partly to experiment with the format, and partly because I found it tough to get people to read the text version. I figured listening might feel like less of a commitment. I'm planning to release the first 6 chapters in this format. If you'd like to read more after that, feel free to contact me by email and apply to be a beta reader. While I can't afford to hire a professional at this point, I'd still love to hear any thoughts you might have. Your feedback means a lot and helps me improve the story. I've added my contact email to the video description. Now enjoy the next chapter of Redemption Loop. Written by Svein Otto Vesteng. Chapter 3. Boy with suspicious wealth. The world was broken. Each day a little less itself, a little more something else, something alien, and there was no room for humans in this new world. Its only hope for salvation? The supreme ruler of the universes, Draven Dirge, 14 years old, and he was dying. Profound carelessness had caused him to turn off the valve before unsealing the umbral charger. The Merc pulse residue that hadn't gone into the battery had escaped. Black pulsing with that extra-dimensional crackling crimson energy, it had seen its target and wasted no time. It went straight up his nose. He could feel it stinging his nostrils, and the smell. Familiar. An image punched through his mind, one of the very first, a crying child in rubble screaming for its motionless mother, a mother who would never wake again. A memory long buried, someone else's life. Damn. He'd heard about this. When people were about to die, sometimes their lives flashed before their eyes. Right before they fell into the black abyss of nothingness. Then he felt it. A tingle in his skull, stinging sharp, like a battery plugging into a charger, energy building. Suddenly it shot down his spine, lightning crackling through every nerve, locking up his muscles like iron bands. Draven stumbled backward, his legs buckled. It felt like he was watching himself from the outside, a display screen going sideways, and he didn't even feel the pain of hitting the floor.
Oh shit!
Ulvar's voice was panicked, rushing in beside him. Draven was still conscious. He could think. But everything else was too much. The energy was still building. He could feel it, the Merc pulse moving through him, crackling fire so hot. It felt like ice in his veins. His limbs jerked, uncontrollable, spasming. He was dying, actually dying. No, not him. He hadn't even finished part 1 of his grand plan yet. Pathetic. Unacceptable. The shaking got worse. He barely noticed Ulvar lifting him, his heels dragging limply across the stone floor. His muscles rippled painfully, wrongly, as if they were trying to reconfigure themselves. Pulsing, twitching, like snakes crawling just beneath his skin. The pain was excruciating. But the supreme ruler would endure. He had to. If he didn't, his family was dead, his father crippled, his sister too young to work. They would starve. They would rot into husks, one slow breath at a time. No.
Like hell.
Draven roared the words at the ceiling, at fate, at the world. The sound tore from his throat like a beast escaping its cage. Ulvar flinched and dropped him. Draven hit the floor, hard, but he didn't care. The supreme ruler would not surrender to this intruder without a fight. As if sensing his defiance, the freezing current storming through his body surged back up into his skull. Thought fractured, shards of reason slipping through his grasp. He couldn't think. He couldn't breathe. He wanted to run, to be anywhere else. Then something right at the edge of his mind. Not a memory, not a thought, a presence. Rationality slipping through his fingers, he reached for it. And it answered. Draven went still, motionless on the stone floor. Red energy crackled across his skin, rhythmic, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. The beat slowed, slower, until it became a lullaby, and Draven, the supreme ruler of the universes, slipped into the sleep of the exhausted. Through a sluggish haze, consciousness returned to Draven. The mineral taste of sand clinging to his tongue, sharp, bitter, and strangely familiar. He coughed, spat, mouth dry. It reminded him of Rena's infamous jerky. Terrible, wonderful. He smiled at the thought. He had to get home. He opened his eyes. A vast room surrounded him, dimly lit by braziers burning with blue flame. Their ghostly light flickered against the dark, polished stone, painting restless shadows on the walls and floor. He lay face first in the center of the chamber, inside a square pit filled with bone-white sand. A golden border framed it like a shrine, or a grave. Something jabbed against his chest, solid, uncomfortable. Draven pushed himself upright, surprised by how easy it felt, the spasms that had ravaged his body gone. He felt light, like something inside had been burned away. Looking down, he saw it. A chain, each link engraved with strange symbols glowing with a pale blue inner light. It coiled beneath him like a sleeping beast, one end vanishing upward into the endless dark above. Or was it the ceiling? The walls stretched on forever, vanishing into a void that defied perspective, but the other end, that was worse. It was in him. The final link protruded cleanly from the center of his chest. No blood, no wound, no pain. The metal looked almost organic, not inserted into his body but of it, as if bone and steel had agreed to share space. Draven didn't dare try pulling it out. Instead, he stood. The chain shifted with him, smooth and serpentine, adjusting its length like it wanted to follow. It moved with purpose, too fluid, too alive, like a parasite clinging to a rabid merc beast feeding off its madness. Where in the hells was this place? Where had they brought him? The stone here was wrong, too perfect, too smooth, not like the scarred walls of home where every surface told stories in cracks and erosion. He turned slowly, eyes scanning the room. These walls gleamed, flawless and dark, reflecting the blue fire like obsidian glass. Behind him, a section broke the perfection. Etched images surrounded a narrow slit in the center of the smooth black wall. An opening, a way out. Was it the back wall? The front? He had no sense of direction, no bearings in this place. He approached the slit, drawn to its frame, an extravagant band of gold, intricate and regal, unlike anything he'd ever seen. Not even in the propaganda videos they showed in school about the grand domed city. It wasn't an arch. Not really. The golden frame rose endlessly, joining the walls as they vanished into a skyless void. Etched into the surface around it was art, a sequence, a story. A young boy with black hair, no pupils in his eyes, just impossibly dark voids that swallowed light. He followed the images. The first, a baby lying on a table. A shadowy figure hovered above it, mist-shaped, faceless, black as smoke. The next froze his breath, a toddler in rubble shaking the body of a woman who would never wake. His stomach twisted. That memory. Draven recoiled. What was this? His breathing quickened. He needed out. He ran, straight through the opening. Behind him, the chain clattered, its echo bouncing off the obsidian walls. It slithered after him like a living thing, metal links scraping against polished stone. The next chamber was identical. Same polished floor, same gold-framed sandpit, Same eerie blue light. Another golden arch across the room, more images etched in its frame. A broken chain dangled from the void above, swinging gently. The runes were dark, lifeless. Something about this place felt wrong. Not man-made, not natural. Draven's pulse quickened. He ran, through the next arch, and the next, each room the same, chains. Silence. By the fifth, his footsteps echoed louder than his thoughts. By the ninth, sweat clung cold to his skin. By the 12th, fear had taken root, deep and gnawing. What was this place? Who built it? And why trap him here? What if he never get out? What if this just goes on forever? He sprinted through the 13th arch and stopped cold. This room was different, larger, at least twice the size of the others. And at its far end, instead of an archway, a colossal staircase spiraled upward into blackness. It rose endlessly, vanishing into the void above, swallowed by unreachable height. Where the sand pit had been in every other room, there was now a throne, massive, carved from the same black stone but veined with golden filigree like roots clinging to a corpse. Someone sat there. A chain glowing with that same pale blue light jutted from their chest, just like his. Their head drooped forward. They wore ornate black robes, heavy and ceremonial, their long black hair spilling like ink over the throne's arms, pooling across the floor like melted shadow. Their fingernails were impossibly long, twisted, gnarled claws that curled down past the throne steps. Not fingers anymore. Roots. Like they'd been growing there for centuries. Whoever they were, they had been here a very long time. They didn't move as Draven stepped closer.
Hey, can you hear me?
He called out. Nothing. He took another step, boots clicking softly against the polished floor.
Where is this place?
Still no response. The figure remained slumped, unmoving. Now face to face, Draven saw it more clearly. A man, maybe 30. But his face was obscured, hidden behind a curtain of tangled black hair that spilled over his shoulders like a shroud. Curious, Draven reached out and jabbed the man in the shoulder. That got a reaction. The figure jolted upright with a grunt of irritation, like someone disturbed from a centuries-long nap. Slowly he raised his head, eyes dull but alert. Draven froze. That face, he looked like Draven's father. No. He looked like Draven. Older, worn down, hollowed out, sadder. A version of himself stripped of purpose, of glory. This had to be one of the hells. He sat on a throne, but not the one Draven had pictured in his rise to power. Not the seat of a ruler or a god. This throne was heavy with failure. The man's voice scraped out like rusted gears, grinding bone.
Ugh, another one. They keep failing. What is even the criteria of success?
Was that a question for him? Draven scowled.
What are you even talking about? Why was I brought here?
The man didn't look at him, head slumping again, voice low.
I am not speaking to the fragment. Disappear into nothingness.
Fragment? Draven's eyes narrowed, fury rising.
Watch your tongue, wretch. I am no fragment. What is this place? Speak, now.
The man let out a dry, hollow sound. A laugh, maybe, but it crumbled into a cough. Something about him made Draven recoil. There was a rot behind the eyes, a dead weight in the air. It felt like death clung to him, not the kind that killed, but the kind that lingered. The kind that might infect you if you got too close.
You're trapped here too, right?
Draven asked.
You're just a pathetic loser. Someone who gave up on their potential. Wasting away on your throne of decay. If anyone's a fragment, it's you.
The man looked up. Hatred burned behind his eyes, pure, focused. It sent a shiver down Draven's spine.
The insignificant, feculent scum believes it has knowledge, insight. It knows nothing.
Something shifted. The air changed. There was power in this thing. Real power. Not just decay, not just death. Draven took a step back. Maybe pushing him wasn't smart.
Yeah, whatever,
He muttered, turning away. Screw this, he needed to get out of here. He walked to the spiral staircase. It loomed ahead, impossibly vast, rising into endless darkness. He stepped onto the first stair. Clink! The chain followed, dragging behind him. Another step, then another. Just keep walking. Things can't go on forever. They can't. Behind him, the man chuckled, a hoarse, empty sound, mocking.
Ignorant fragment. It's barely 0.001% of the whole, practically negligible.
Draven paused, frowned, looked down. He was still on the bottom step, even though he remembered climbing several. The air felt wrong now. Not just heavy, off. Like the world itself was rejecting him. The sensation crawled under his skin, maddening and surreal.
Oh, now you're talking?
Draven snapped. His voice shook with fury.
How about answering something I actually asked? Like, where the hell is this place?
He yanked at the chain anchored to his chest. The links clinked sharply as he flung his arm wide.
And what are these for? Some twisted afterlife? Or did the Totem Lords finally get creative with their torment?
The man didn't turn. His voice came soft and hollow, like it echoed from deep inside a dying cave.
You barely exist. Less than a figment of my mind.
Draven's fists clenched. He wanted to strike him. Not because the words were right. They weren't. But because they mattered. More than he wanted them to. He had nothing to prove to this wretch. And yet...
You do well not to belittle me.
Draven snapped, voice sharp with wounded pride.
I'll rule the universes one day.
The man let out a brittle, joyless laugh.
Right. Delusions of a petulant child disappear. No one will mourn this scornful speck of dust. The fragment would do well to leave its betters in their solitude.
Draven curled his lip in a sneer.
No one would mourn me. I do have people who care about me. My sister. What?
He was cut off. The man moved. In a blink, he was no longer seated. He was towering, alive with wrath. A soundless pulse rippled through the air like thunder that hadn't been given permission to crash. His eyes went black, laced with red lightning, cracks spreading like veins across glass.
It will not speak that name in my presence.
The voice hit like a quake, shaking the stone beneath them. Draven staggered, breath stolen by the sheer weight of it. Not a strike, a force, crushing, cosmic. The air grew dense, humming against his skin like a live wire. It felt like standing before a god of storms, ancient and enraged. His heart slammed in his chest. Every cell screamed run, but he couldn't move. Trapped in the gravity of something greater than himself. The man loomed over him, heat rolling off his body like a barely contained furnace. The air shimmered around him, dense, electric with rage. But no strike came. Instead, the figure slumped, as if the fury had drained him dry. The red light in his eyes flickered, then faded, leaving only shadow.
Don't you dare!
He whispered, his voice cracked and brittle, like old stone buckling under pressure. The grief in it wasn't loud, but it was heavy. A tidal weight that settled in Draven's chest, squeezing until his breath hitched. Then came the sound, a metallic clatter. The chain on Draven's chest began to rattle. A cold shiver ran down his spine. It jerked, once, sharply.
What now?
He breathed barely above a whisper. It yanked again, harder. The links bit into his skin. His feet left the ground. He rose, dragged upward by an unseen force. The air grew colder, thinner. The light dimmed, until only black remained. Then, silence. and the infinite nothing swallowed him whole. A blinding light and the blaring hiss of the decontamination chamber jolted Draven back to life. He could move. He could breathe. He was alive. He covered his eyes, black spots burned into his vision. Still he rose to his feet, no pain, not even a trace of it. He felt strong, really strong. That was unexpected. The blaring light dimmed as the cycle ended, its meaningless theater of safety now complete. Through the glass, beyond the sealed door to Worksite G, stood Ulvar, staring wide-eyed, expression wild with disbelief. Draven pressed the door key. The lock hissed. The door slid open.
Holy freaking crap! You're alive, man!
Ulvar stared straight into his eyes, face twisting into something between awe and fear. He leaned in slightly, voice dropping.
I don't mean to freak you out, man,
he said slowly.
but, dude, your eyes, they're black, like the whole freaking thing.
Draven said nothing.
Maybe you should go through the lights one more time.
Ulvar said, gesturing vaguely at the chamber.
Just to be safe, I mean.
Draven tilted his head, thinking. Then,
How long has it been since it happened?
Ulvar scratched his neck, frowning as he did the math.
Like 10 minutes.
Draven nodded slowly. Most people exposed to the Merc pulse were dead within minutes. Rarely, if ever, did they make it to 5. He was still standing, still breathing, still him, right? Had he really gone to that place? It felt real. He could taste it, feel it. Or was it just a fever dream? A side effect of the Merc pulse assaulting his body? That twisted reflection. That mockery of his dreams. That wretch was not him. Not ever. Draven took stock. He felt strong, invigorated. Even the biting hunger was gone. He still had work to do. Still. It felt real now. Undeniable. He truly was the supreme ruler of the universes, even more powerful than the Merc pulse itself. Well, hopefully. He definitely didn't want to go through that again. Still, a lot of the concentrated Merc pulse had gone into the battery. Maybe that had spared him from worse. Maybe he was just built differently. Feeling good for the first time all day, Draven slung a pickaxe over his shoulder, grinning up at the scaffolding where miners toiled, completely oblivious to the miracle that had just taken place right under their noses.
Hey, man, this is no time to work. You gotta get back into the decontamination chamber, right now.
Draven ignored him. He walked over to where he'd dropped the helmet battery. Strange. It was faintly glowing, resting on the floor beside the umbral charging station.
Dude, seriously, your eyes are freaking black. And you think that machine's gonna fix that?
Draven shot back, eyes locked on the battery. It stopped glowing the moment he picked it up. The light just vanished. He slipped it into his pocket.
If it was gonna kill me,
He said, voice low.
I'd be dead already.
He paused, took a breath. Why did he get angry so easily? His nerves were on fire. This day had been a lot. Calmer now, he continued.
Look, Ulvar, I need to earn some serious credits. I've got people depending on me.
Ulvar nodded, offering a lopsided grin.
We all do, man. Believe you me, I'd much rather be in school than stuck in this death trap.
He took a step closer, more earnest now.
You don't have to do all of it alone.
Then raising an eyebrow, he added,
So let me ask you again. Do you need the help of a rather, competent beam boy? My dude?
Draven smiled despite himself. Something strange, a tug in his gut, like he wanted to trust Ulvar. No, like he needed to make a connection to another human being. That felt wrong. There was something about the constant friendliness that bugged him. Too easy, too smooth. This place wasn't built for smiling. This mine was a hell all its own, angry, sad, sarcastic. Those were the proper emotions down here, not kindness, not whatever this was. He didn't trust this boy, but still. When Draven had been on the ground spasming, Ulvar hadn't robbed him, hadn't run. He'd tried to help, and he was still offering. Help would be good.
20%.
Draven mumbled. Ulvar blinked.
I don't mean to sound ungrateful or anything.
Draven said nothing, just stared at him. Ulvar shifted under the silence.
What I mean is, I think, and forgive me if I'm wrong, you've never hired a beam boy before.
Draven kept staring, waiting for a point.
Normally, a beam boy gets around 5%.
Ulvar added.
And, well, it wouldn't feel right to, overcharge you.
Draven scoffed.
Take it or leave it.
Ulvar looked like, for the first time in his life, he had nothing to say. Draven didn't wait for him to find the words. He'd already lost enough time. He hitched on his backpack and started toward the tunnels. Behind him, Ulvar's voice stumbled out, rushed and uncertain.
I'll do it. It's a deal, I mean.
Draven paused, glanced back, then gave a short nod, a quick jerk of his head. Follow. Draven chose the spiral tunnel at the very top and far end of the chamber. They made their way past beam crews supporting miners deeper inside, Ulvar trailing behind, holding a large remote attached to his belt. It controlled the beam lifter that lumbered ahead of them. The machine looked like an android, but it had no personality. No mock face. Just 4 insect-like legs and a hulking upper body designed to carry heavy support beams. It stepped with unnatural ease across the narrow metal plates that formed the scaffolding. Draven tried not to think about how close they were to the surface. He had lived his whole life underground. Large spaces made his skin crawl. They reached the tunnel they'd picked, empty, untouched. No other workers in sight. The walls of the circular shaft gleamed smooth, melted into glassy spirals by the melter drill. No marks from pickaxes, no scars from excavation, just silence. Waiting. Draven peered into the tunnel's throat. Its end vanished into the dark. A shiver crawled up his spine. That dream, or vision, or whatever it had been, the endless void. It was waiting. There were voices in places like this, deep places, dark places, and Draven had heard them ever since he was a child. Whenever he was caught in total darkness, they whispered. No words he could make out, just feelings. Anger, hate, hunger. He knelt, unfastening the flap of his pack, and pulled out his father's helmet. Popping open the umbral lamp's panel, he slid the charged battery into place. The light flickered to life, dim but steady. The light wasn't strong, but strong enough to keep back that which lives in such dark places. Without a word to Ulvar, Draven stepped into the tunnel. He closed his eyes for a moment and breathed in slowly. He really did feel good. Too good. The Merc pulse. It had done something to him, restored him, or numbed him. He wasn't sure which. He had to find crystals, and lots of them. People were counting on him. Through closed eyes, a faint glow appeared in the tunnel. Draven opened his eyes. What? The tunnel was dotted with small, glowing circles stretching deep into the dark. What was this? Just like the umbral battery had glowed when he was looking for it, so were areas in the tunnel now. Did that mean? No way. Couldn't be. Draven walked over to one of the glowing spots and started chipping away with the pickaxe. Rubble dropped around his feet in soft bursts of dust. Wow. He was really making headway. He didn't remember ever being this strong. Then he hit the source of the glow, a cluster of umbral crystals. Was this power? Like the corrupt totem lords wielded? Impossible. He was born to the working class. They didn't get totem bonds. Unless the schools lied, hiding a different path to power. But didn't totems have masks? He could figure that out later. Right now, it was time to capitalize on whatever this was. Draven walked back to Ulvar, who was waiting outside, and dropped a handful of crystals into his hands.
Whoa, that was fast. Super lucky.
Ulvar said wide-eyed.
Get an empty trolley.
Draven ordered. Ulvar cocked his head.
Found even more?
Draven nodded once, then turned and disappeared back into the tunnel. Draven managed 4 hours of non-stop work. Each time a crystal cluster ran dry, he spotted another, always just ahead, always glowing with that strange internal shimmer only he seemed to see. No food, no rest, no reason to stop. The Merc pulse had killed everyone it touched, but Draven, he felt better than ever, stronger than he'd ever been, like something inside him had snapped awake. But as the hours dragged on, the light began to dim, not vanish, just fade. And with it, the fatigue returned, first to his arms, then his legs. The raw ache of hunger came crawling back, settling deep in his gut like a coiled animal. His breaths grew heavier, slower. Whatever was keeping him going, it was running out.
Your eyes,
Ulvar said wide-eyed.
they turned back to normal.
He stared at Draven like he wasn't sure whether to be impressed or terrified.
Once the eyes turn black, you should be dead, bro. But nah, man. You were just like, not today, and now? Geez, dude, here you are.
While they worked, Draven and Ulvar had used several beam crates to brace the tunnel ceiling. But the truth was they hadn't needed that many. The tunnel walls were pockmarked with neat holes. Every strike of Draven's pick guided by that strange glow only he could see. Every time, exactly where to dig. Now one of the empty beam crates sat overflowing, crammed with umbral crystals. A small group of miners had gathered nearby, their rough faces marked with suspicion and awe, whispering among themselves as they stared at the haul the two boys had dragged out of the rock. Ulvar leaned in close to Draven, dropping his voice to a hush only he could hear.
Are you like a totem or something? Don't be stupid,
Draven snapped, harsher than he intended, but he didn't pull it back. The anger surprised him, hot and sudden, like striking stone and seeing sparks fly.
The damn totem lords are in league with demons,
He hissed.
They use their power to force people like us to live and die starving in the dark.
Ulvar rocked back on his heels when visibly thrown.
Sorry, man.
He muttered, hands half raised like he wasn't sure if Draven was about to hit him.
I didn't mean anything by it. Yeah, dumb question.
He gave that awkward little laugh of his, the one Draven was already starting to hate. Nervous and clumsy, like trying to suffocate tension with kindness.
Besides, you don't even have a totem mask.
He said it like that settled the matter. Draven clenched his fists. Of course he didn't have a mask. Masks were for oppressors, for lords, for monsters. He didn't need one. He would rule them all. And unlike them, he would earn it. Every step, every scar, every damned breath. What was this guy's deal anyway? Always saying nice things, always smoothing things over. Like that worked. Like words could patch up a world built to break you. Something about the way Ulvar looked at him made it hard to stay angry. No mockery, no challenge, just a kind of stupid, stubborn respect Draven didn't know how to deal with.
I don't know what happened.
Draven muttered, letting some of the fire drain out of his voice.
Guess I'm just meant for greatness.
Ulvar laughed, quick, bright, unguarded. Draven almost added that wasn't a joke, but he didn't. He let the piece settle, awkward and fragile as it was.
Let's just cash this in,
Draven said. He needed food, badly, but he wasn't about to let Ulvar see that kind of weakness. Maybe that was all the kid was waiting for. An opening? But if that were true, why hadn't he struck when it seemed like he was going to die? What was this guy's angle? Draven kept a close eye on Ulvar, and an even closer one on the miners still watching their haul. Awe filled their faces. Hunger filled their eyes. Maybe it was a good thing there were two of them now. They hitched the crate of crystals onto a rusted trolley. The stones deceptively light, as if they were more energy than matter. The crystals were a byproduct of the extra-dimensional Merc pulse seeping into the earth, binding to what it could, replicating the mineral structures growing into the valuable and volatile umbral crystals. As they pushed toward the entrance, the crystals clinked and rattled, a high-pitched glassy resonance that sent a chill up Draven's spine. It would take a lot of force to shatter one, sure. But if it did break, it would release Merc pulse, not a flood, just a trace. But that was more than enough to kill anyone nearby. Red energy pulsed within them, synchronized, like a heartbeat. He'd never seen the Merc pulse sky himself, never set foot on the surface. But people said the pulses above matched the rhythm of these crystals, as if the storm and the stones were somehow connected, breathing together. The strange glow, the one only he could see, had nearly faded. Now only the pulse remained, visible to everyone. Was Draven going crazy? No. The glow had been real. He'd seen it, clearly, and the filled crate was proof of that. And he'd breathed in Merc pulse. That alone should have killed him. Was it possible that everything he believed about himself and all his plans, his hunger for power, was actually achievable now? With this power, maybe. But if he didn't get food soon, he was going to collapse before he figured any of it out. Pushing the heavy trolley with Ulvar was already getting painful. His muscles burned with each step. His stomach felt like it was trying to digest itself. It's not like Rena had much food at home either, no. They had to cash this in. This haul was easily 4 times a normal day's pay. Maybe more. The boys were pushing the crate toward the airlock when a group of miners stepped into their path. 5 of them, broad-shouldered and silent, forming a wall of stained uniforms and hard stares. Blocking the way, he was getting worried, not scared. Scared got you killed. His hands clenched tighter around the trolley handle. He wouldn't even be able to run in his current state. Not really. If he was being honest, he'd struggle just getting home. His legs were shaking. He couldn't stop it. His weakness was showing, and the predators could see it. Draven palmed one of the crystals from the crate. If he was going down, he was going to take someone with him. Then Ulvar turned to him and smiled. Actually smiled.
Don't you worry, bro.
He said, all calm and sunshine.
I'll deal with this.
He let go of the trolley and strolled toward the miners with that same casual, too friendly energy he always wore like a jacket.
How can I help you, fellas?
He asked, flashing an easy grin. One of them stepped forward, a skinny man, missing all the important teeth, the front ones.
That's quite some haul your boys got there.
The man said, voice rough, eyes hungry, dangerous.
You found all that on your own? Hard to believe.
Draven tensed. His fingers tightened around the crystal like a lifeline. He felt dizzy, like a Merc chicken had gotten trapped inside his skull. And naturally furious with this new arrangement, it was now trying to peck its way out. He blinked, not thinking straight. The toothless thug's scratchy voice tore him back into focus. Draven was in danger. Come on. Focus.
What crew are you smuggling for? These had to be planted, right?
Ulvar's expression didn't change.
Oh, nah. We just had luck today. You know?
He said, voice light.
But I just so happened to be here on someone else's orders. Someone you don't want to mess with, I bet.
Wait, who was he talking about? Not Draven, that was for sure. His legs were threatening to abandon him altogether. Ulvar reached inside his jacket. The miners tensed, just slightly, like they expected him to pull out an umbral pistol. What Ulvar pulled out might as well have been a weapon. It was a small metal disc. Engraved on its surface was a mask, half an outline, half solid black. The symbol of duality, the emblem of the Sarduk. The effect was immediate. The predatory hunger in the men's eyes drained along with their color as they realized an even bigger predator had already laid claim to their prey. The air itself seemed to shift, thick with the weight of knowing what not to know. The tooth-challenged miner swallowed hard.
Oh, I see. Didn't mean anything by it, man.
He didn't even look at Ulvar as he backed away, the others trailing behind him defeated without a fight. Ulvar was a Sarduk recruiter. Of course he was. It all made sense now. The constant friendliness, the way he smiled like nothing mattered, how he'd stuck by Draven from the start. He hadn't seen a friend. He'd seen a candidate. Draven's stomach churned. Of course, that's what this was. Kindness didn't just happen, not down here, not in this world. People were only ever nice when they wanted something. And now he knew what Ulvar wanted. Not to mention, the guy had practically threatened 5 grown miners with a violent death, without ever losing that stupid sunny smile. Who the hell had Draven gotten himself tangled up with? Though the propaganda displays urged everyone to inform on the Sarduk, no one did, as much as they feared the boot of the cursed totem lords. The Sarduk were like nightmares that would come for you in the night if you crossed them. A thought struck Draven. If Ulvar could rattle the miners like that, maybe he could use him to pry the bastard Shrag's grip from around his throat. The boys made their way through decontamination and entered the elevator in silence. Only the sound of their footsteps and the hum of machinery hung between them. Draven had to keep an eye on Ulvar. Figure out a way. It was getting difficult to think. His head throbbed. His breaths came shallow, each inhale scraping his throat like earth scarred by some insistent gnawing heat hell-bent on wearing him down. Losing his grip on his hard-earned fortune, Draven's fingers slipped off the crate, his arms falling limp at his sides, numb like they no longer belonged to him. Were the lethal effects of the Merc Pulse finally finishing their work? Damn it! He stumbled to his knees, a dark, shadowy tunnel forming at the edges of his vision, collapsing his entire existence into a single point. He barely caught sight of Ulvar turning, running toward him. Then the lights went out. The future ruler of all drifting into darkness, his conquest of the universe is merely postponed. Death could wait. This was merely a strategic nap.